I know there's a lot of people that uh, don't need to sell originals or sell prints of their originals. Um, if you're selling your originals for, $20,000, making prints can actually sometimes hurt your art and hurt your sales. But I'm finding that, most people that are out there um, making prints and selling prints of your art can actually be a big help if you're trying to make money at what you're doing. And that's what I'm here for, is to allow you to continue doing your art and not have to worry so much about photographing your art and worrying about all the digital formats that you need to know, and doing social media, all that type of stuff that you need to do. I'm trying to do as much as I can to help local artists get their art out there, sell it, and make prints and make a little extra money doing that. And with my expertise in printing and digital files and things like that, and capture. So I'm just going to do a quick run through. Um, if you've never seen what this process is before, it's called giclee, and doesn't really matter where it came from. I know a lot of people talk about where it came from. I don't think it really matters, but basically, giclee over time has changed quite a bit. When it first started, it was basically made so that artists could make prints. But the trouble was, at the beginning of uh, this industry, capture was actually not very good. So if you wanted to take a picture of your art, you would have to shoot it on film, basically scan the film, and then print it on one of these really expensive printers, probably go someplace to have somebody print it for you. Um, One of the biggest problems with that, though, was the inks. Very early on, inks were not very good, and they would fade very quickly, especially with reds. Um, so this process got better over time, and so now this process that I'm actually going to explain is kind of where we are now. So the first part is doing the capture or the scan of your art. And there's a lot of different ways that you can capture a piece of art, but for our process, we definitely recommend, when something's photographed, that you photograph with the highest resolution image that you can get. Um, we actually use a Fuji GFX camera system now. That gives us about a 300 megabyte file size. Um, that translates into about a 30 by 40, or maybe even 36 by 48 now with the 300. It's about a 36 by 48 at 300 DPI. So you can get a 36 by 48 size print from, even if I shot a 5 by 7 original, it's shot at that large size, that 36 by 48 at 300 DPI, around that size. When we're photographing things, I'm going to kind of just talk specifically about pastel, because that's what we're kind of talking about today, and that's what you guys do. Um, Pastels for scanning uh, reproduce very well. So since pastel is kind of that chalky texture, the light doesn't get refracted very much. And so we get very, very nice reproductions from pastels. Um, Early on, we had a little bit of trouble with the uh, the gamut, or the colors that we could reproduce. When I first started, I could probably reproduce about 80% of the colors that pastels made. And today we're probably around 95% of the colors. The only ones that we really have a little bit of trouble with are turquoise, dark turquoise. Um, and But most other colors we can hit pretty well. Um, so uh, Once we do our capture on that really high-end camera, um, the next step is to do the color correction. So we actually take that file from the camera, open it up, crop it, shrink it down to an 8 by 10 or somewhere around 8 by 10 size, and then print that on whatever media you think you're going to make your prints on. And for giclee, you usually want to print on either watercolor paper or canvas. We do actually have a smooth matte paper that we print on also that is also considered archival too. So with that color correction, what we do is we print out just an initial 8 by 10, take a look at that and compare it to your original, and then make any tweaks that we need to. When we're finished with our color correction, we'll have you, the artist, come in, take a look at that proof, and make sure that that matches as close as possible. We're, like I said, we're about 95% there. It's not going to be an exact duplicate of your original, mainly because your original is pastel and our prints are actually ink. But I think most of you would be amazed how well pastels can be reproduced on canvas and watercolor paper.
Hey, Jeff, can I interject a question we got?
Sure.
You talked about scanning. Is this on a scan bid rather than a camera stand photo, or did you cover that?
Yeah, so if you look, I actually have a little picture of our scanning system here. And what that is it's actually the process has kind of evolved over time. When I first started, we actually had this, it's actually a vacuum easel on a copy stand. And that, at first we were actually using a 4x5 camera with a digital insert inside it. And that would take us about 15-20 minutes to scan a piece of art through that scanner. As technology evolved, we upgraded to a phase one camera. Most people have never heard of a phase one camera. They're usually used for fashion photography for billboards and really large format type images. We actually had that phase one camera on this copy stand for a long time, and that was giving us about a 250 megabyte size file. But basically, this camera just attaches to this arm up here, and everything is shot from above. And then we use the television lighting, which gives us a really nice soft lighting, kind of cuts down on harsh shadows and things like that. Sometimes we want to have harsh shadows. If you have something with a lot of texture, if you're an oil painter or something, sometimes you want to have a little more shadows so it looks more three-dimensional. So we do change our lighting sometimes to accommodate for that. But now, just in the past 2 years, we actually upgraded to this Fuji GFX 100S, and it's pretty. It looks just like like a Canon or a Nikon SLR camera that you might buy if you spend $2,000 or $3,000 on one of those cameras. You can get an okay image from those, but this camera is the next level from there. The lens is much sharper than what you would get on a Canon or Nikon, even if you spent a little bit more money on a better lens. And also the sensor that's capturing that image, it's a much larger sensor, so we are able to capture a lot more detail. Actually, let me see if I can actually have another window up here. I'm just going to show you this real quick. Can everybody see that okay? This is actually
Right now, all we see is your
oh, okay, yeah. Actually,
you have another page, it looks like,
yeah.
on there, but I
You know what,
can't.
I'm just sharing that one window. Anyway, I won't get into that. But
Okay.
basically, if you're shooting with, let's say you wanted to shoot your art with an iPhone or a camera phone, if you shoot with something like that, the biggest difference that you're going to notice between shooting with that and shooting with our camera is number one, the distortion. Uh, Cameras on phones tend to distort the edges, and so you're not actually getting a exact replica of what your art is. In addition to that, phones tend to be optimized for color and contrast. So most people like to see very contrasty images and very bright colors. And so phones tend to be optimized for that. And for art reproduction, it's actually not very good because we want, especially with pastels, you want to have a nice, even color and nice, even lighting and no distortion. So that's why we use this really high-end camera. It totally gets rid of distortion. We don't have any aberrations or anything on the edges of that file. And it reproduces color much, much better. You would probably notice in the darker areas if you're using browns and blacks and darker pastels, um, your phone probably won't reproduce those colors as well, especially if you have a dark brown. If you want to see that detail, phones usually can't pick that up very well, and they'll just take it to a black sometimes. And the same thing with lighter areas. If you have a very fine, a very light image and lots of different variation in those light colors, say in a sky, a phone might actually blow those highlights out a little bit, and you'll lose some detail actually. So that's kind of what my job is to make sure that we're keeping all the details of your original pastel, and that's why we like to use these higher end cameras. Um, you know, this camera that we use, it's you can buy one for about 10,000 these days, um, and you're paying for all that extra capability and color and uh, less of that distortion and things like that. Um,
Hey, Jeff, you had another question?
sure.
We can save them to the end if you prefer,
Okay. Yeah.
or just ask now. What do you think of working with images taken from the new iPhones? Are they good enough for giclee or not? I know that kind of runs to the counter to what you're trying to achieve here. But if you had a really high resolution raw image, let's say from a smartphone, can you work with that?
So for my process, that would actually an iPhone image actually disqualifies it as a giclée print. Um, Usually, if you're going to photograph something for it to reproduce it, you want to use a camera like ours that, like I said, doesn't have that distortion and the that contrast issue that you have with iPhones. So, can you use that for other things? Definitely. iPhones are great for if you're going to make like greeting cards or if you're going to use your images for advertising. Um, I think that it's okay to actually use an iPhone file for a lot of things, especially if you're just trying to market your pieces on social media or on a website, um, or small print, like if you're doing 4x6 postcards or something like that. You can get away with that with an iPhone, especially with the quality that you're getting today from the iPhone compared to where it was, say, 15 years ago. It is much better. But that being said, the iPhones are really meant for sharing. And when I say sharing, it's digital. So social media, websites, things like that. You don't need that much higher resolution for those types of things. So iPhone is probably fine for that. But when you get into printing, and if you're trying to compete with other people who are selling their prints at, say, a festival or something like that, it's definitely in your best interest to use the best capture system that you can. The capture or that photograph of your art is the most important part of doing a reproduction on watercolor paper or canvas, you would notice a pretty big difference between uh, a reproduction done with my camera and something done with an iPhone. And if you're walking around a festival and you're looking at different artists' prints, you'll probably notice that you can probably see the difference. There's not a lot of people out there actually using this process still. There's actually a lot of people that are still using iPhones to make prints. And but this process that we're using is definitely going to give you a much bigger advantage for sales. Your buyers, although they may not notice it consciously, if you're walking around a festival and looking at different people's art, there's a wow factor to a print that's been made with my process, this giclee process, and it definitely gives you an advantage. So it definitely helps. Um, that probably begs the question, so what if I spent just a little bit more money and went out and bought, say, a Nikon camera and made reproductions from that? And can we use those files here at Archival Arts? Um, Same idea, I think. You'll probably get a little bit better resolution, and you can make a little bit larger files. So like, let's say if an iPhone is only going to give you maybe a 8x10 or a 5x7, that would look okay, whereas the color might be a little off. Um, a Nikon or a Canon camera that you buy at a camera store with a detachable lens, that might give you, say, around a 12x16 or a 16x20 file that might be acceptable for a giclee print. That being said, you are still going to have a little bit of distortion depending on the lens you use. And also, those cameras are still not quite there with dark areas, and they're not quite there where we are with the Fuji system that we have. And that's why, by all means, if we were able to do the really high quality stuff with a Nikon or a Canon, we would do that. But the Fuji system is definitely um, a, many steps better than what you would get with those cameras. So we definitely recommend using our system for photographing your art, especially if you're planning on doing larger prints like 16x20 and larger. Um, I guess one thing that another advantage with this system that we're using is it allows you to enlarge much larger. So if you bring me, say, a 16x20 pastel, and we photograph that on our system, um, once you get to that 300 megabyte file size, um, that allows us to pretty much print any size you want, even up to filling a wall with a mural from that 16x20 size file. And so that's one of the biggest reasons we use the camera we use. So when you bring something to us, we photograph it one time and you'll never have to photograph it again. And you can use that file for pretty much anything you need, anywhere from a website all the way to a mural size print. So that's kind of a, I think it went into the scanning thing quite a bit, which is good. That's definitely the most important part of it.
Hey, Jeff, are there any size limitations? I assume people are bringing their work to you to photograph. So what can you work with?
Yeah, so the nice thing is we can we can actually scan any size. I've scanned everything from um, a little tiny postage size print or original, all the way up to, I think the biggest thing I ever did was I think it was about a 60-foot mural that was outside that we photographed in many pieces, stitched it together, and then they were actually able to reproduce that same piece outside and replace that mural because it was getting damaged. So yeah, definitely no limitation for scanning originals. Um, Once we get to say over 16x20 size, sometimes we like to shoot in multiple pieces, and that gives you an even larger file size. Sometimes if you bring something that's like a 40 by 60, we'll shoot that in 6 pieces, stitch all those 6 pieces together, and then we'll end up with almost an 800 to 1,000 megabyte file size. And that's really allows us to get great resolution when we're printing large pieces. I suspect most of you that meeting with today, you're probably not looking to get much larger than 30 by 40 size. But the nice thing is if we do scan that your original, you do have that capability of somewhere down the road, somebody says, oh, I'd really love to have that image in my dining room or my living room and have wallpaper made of that. We can actually help you with that. That's kind of what I specialize in.
Jeff, excuse me, we're getting a lot of questions about the business side and pricing and all that, and I'm just going to recommend that folks follow up directly with you.
Okay.
And if they don't have it, we'll give them the link to your website and contact information.
Yeah, we actually do have pricing on our website. It's archivalarts.com. And that's actually on this, it's on the first page of this handout that has all of our information there to go to the website and our email. And by all means, if you have any questions about any of this, you can feel free to give us a call. Anybody that answers the phone here can answer any of your questions about our capabilities, especially with our process from scanning to color correction to the final printing. Just to give you a little idea about the pricing, this isn't for everyone. It's most of the people that we print for are people who are trying to resell, especially at shows or galleries or even online, and are looking for really high quality prints. That being said, our pricing goes anywhere so if you wanted to photograph, say, an 8 by 10 original, we charge about $35 for that. And then that pricing goes all the way up to $176 for, say, like a 30 by 40. Our pricing is actually done by square inches, so it all depends on what size your original is. So like an 18 by 24 might be around $100 to scan it. And that original scan basically that includes the photograph, the color correction that we do, the proof that we give you when you come in to take a look at the colors. And then also we provide you with all the files that you would need to either make prints or use for your website or email. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea for the scanning, what the cost will be. And then for printing, it usually depends also on the size. On watercolor paper, prints usually range anywhere from $12 for an 8 by 10 up to maybe 150 or so for larger prints like 30 by 40s and stuff like that. But you can go on our website, click on the pricing page, and there's a new pricing calculator that we have on there where you can just type in the size that you have, and it'll give you pricing for that. Let's see. I guess we kind of went over most of everything with the scanning and the proofing. I think I just want to talk a little bit about the medias that we print on. There's a lot of medias out there that you can have your art printed on. We actually, over the years, since I've been doing this for about 25 years, I started out printing on maybe 30 different medias, anywhere from watercolor paper to canvas. There's many different types of canvas, gloss and matte and all that. There's vinyl, there's wallpaper, there's so many medias out there that you can print on. But if you're planning on actually selling prints at a show, we have kind of narrowed everything down to pretty much really high-end watercolor paper. a high-end canvas, and then a matte paper, a smooth matte paper. Um, Usually for um, those those three different medias are we've found are the best ones, are the best sellers. Once you get into the other medias, you're getting away from this giclee process that I've been talking about. Giclees are really meant um, to be sold, on the art market. They need to be archival, and so most medias that are out there are not archival and are not tested to last a really long time. In addition, there's a lot of printers out there that are using printers that um, are also not archival. So if you go to like sign shops like Signorama or Fast Signs or someplace like that, they're using inks that are rated for outdoor and for signs and things that are only going to be used for maybe 2 or 3 years. The inks that we're using are archival, and they're actually meant to last for a lifetime. When I say lifetime, 80 to 100 years before it's going to start to break down. The colors will stay pretty fast, though. We've done a lot of testing with that, and prints that I made 15, 20 years ago are still here in my office hanging, and still look just as good as they did the first day that I made them.
Hey, Jeff, did you, you may have mentioned this, do you clear coat your canvas prints so
Yes,
they
we
don't
do.
bleed?
Yeah, so uh, we do have some people that request not to have their canvases varnished, and we do that sometimes because artists like to do embellishments, especially with if you're doing a print. Sometimes we can't hit all those colors, especially the turquoise and things like metallics and fluorescents. Fluorescent colors, we can't really print those. They just kind of get dumbed down into like a muddy color. So if you're trying to do like a fluorescent orange and we try to print that, it's going to be sort of a toned down to just a regular orange or sometimes a little bit brownish even.
Okay.
So that's kind of one thing to think about if anyone is out there trying to get into doing metallics and things like that. Um,
Someone asked about printing onto metal. Do you do that?
I don't do it here, but that's one thing. The reason I don't do it here is it's a lot different equipment to actually do metal prints, and there's 3 or 4 different processes that you can use to do that. Since we're mostly trying to do the giclee process and make sure that it's archival and keeping that process true, um, metal prints tend to be mostly made for photographs, and you can print your art on metal, um, but I don't see enough of a demand for that for the metal for what we're doing to justify buying the equipment that we need to use for that. But that being said, I do understand the process. I have done it myself before. You need a heat press and all kinds of other stuff to do that. I dabbled in it and realized that it wasn't really for our customers. It just wasn't enough demand. But if you need help doing that and you are looking to have that done, I can definitely give you recommendations, help you with the scanning and getting the digital file together, and then make recommendations on who can do that for you. Yeah. Um, do you have any other questions that I know we're getting close to a half an hour, but did you want to go a little longer?
Yeah, well, if you've got more material, I see someone asked about, do you print on velour paper? But I think your handout shows that you're focused on archival high quality watercolor paper.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we don't really get into too many other medias other than our watercolor paper, canvas, and the smooth matte paper. That being said, I do have capability and I do have some things in stock. If you want to do some testing, I do have a metallic photographic paper that I love to print on. I, I like to do photography, and so I print a lot of my photography on metallic paper. It looks beautiful. It kind of gives it a little bit of a glowy look, especially if you're looking at doing photographs of photographs that have metallic like metallics and things like that in it. It just kind of enhances the image just a little bit better. Other medias, I do have wallpaper type media that I print on sometimes. There's vinyl that has a adhesive back to it. You can make stickers out of that. I have some of that in stock here. Um, Velour, I don't think I've ever dealt with anything like that before, but rice paper sometimes has been popular. There's bamboo paper, which is close to the archival watercolor paper, which is a little bit more sustainable. That's becoming a little bit more popular now. So yeah, by all means, if you have a specific media that you're interested in and you want to try that out, sometimes I've talked to people in the past where they will buy the media themselves and give it to me, and then I can test it out for them and see if that's something that they want to deal with. So yeah, definitely, we have a lot of capability that we don't do as our core business, but because I have such a history in all different types of printing, I can definitely help with a lot of different types of things like that. Um, I guess I just wanted to touch on the certificate of authenticity thing. I do get a lot of questions about that. Um, when I first started the business, it was probably more popular to actually put a certificate with your prints. The reason we do certificates is because it actually outlines the camera that we use to photograph your art, the inks that we use to print, the media that we printed it on, and it has a little bit of information about that you can put on it that's about your original, what size it was. And that certificate is actually really good for anybody who's going to appraise your print down the road. If you don't have a certificate with your print, it's probably not going to be as valuable as if it had the certificate with it, mainly because the certificate shows that we used the highest or the best quality process that we can that we have today. If it doesn't have the certificate, an appraiser really won't know what they're dealing with, or how that was made, whether it was shot on an iPhone, or sometimes you can see if it was shot on an iPhone just because of the blurriness of the image. But papers are kind of hard to know, like where they came from or if they're archival or not. So that's the certificate is, I think, is really important, and we actually provide you with a certificate as long as your print is over, say 8.5 by 11 size, 9 by 12 and larger. Usually when you get into the smaller pieces like 5 by 7s, 8 by 10s, usually those are open editions. Most people aren't doing limited edition, very small prints like that. So we don't actually give the certificates for small pieces like that. But once you get over the 9 by 12 size, we're happy to give you a free certificate that you can fill out and give with each of the prints that you're selling. So I think it's a pretty important thing, and it definitely will help your sales. And it's something that's nice that you can tell your buyers about, um, and kind of just gives a little more value to the prints that you're selling. And I think I covered just about everything. Um, we went over pricing a little bit. Feel free to look at our website for the pricing. Um, just one other thing I would like to mention is our website. Um, it's been almost 5 years now, but we started creating a website after the pandemic. Um, the whole idea in the beginning of my business was to actually have an actual gallery for my artists to be able to help sell their art. Um, just with the way things have gone, it's not really feasible for us to have an in-person gallery for our artists. Um, that's why we decided to do this online gallery. It's mdartgalleries.com. So like marylandartgalleries.com. We have about 50 of the people that I print for are, I think there's almost 60 on there now. But if you go to the website, you can see it's basically an online art gallery. It's specifically for artists that come to us to have their art scanned. There isn't anything on that website that hasn't been shot with our really high-end camera. So if somebody's buying something on that website, they know that they can do any size they want, and um, and it's going to be a very good quality print, and it's coming from us. That's the one thing that you run into is if you look at like the art.coms and the some of the other art galleries that are on the internet. Um, One thing that's very popular these days is drop shipping. And so what happens is if you go and order a print, say on, art.com, and you live in, say, Chicago, um, that website is going to find the closest place to where you live to make that print. And what that means is they have to have a network of places that do printing for them all over the country. And the problem with that is you never know who's actually doing your print. So if you're trying to do limited edition prints and you're trying to keep your quality consistent, um, having a lot of other people who are doing your printing for you, and you really never know how good your quality is going to be. And mostly what happens is it's all over the place. Sometimes you'll get a really good print and your customer will get a nice print, but other times, just depending on where they are, um, the quality might be a lot less quality, depending where it's coming from. And you also don't know, you can't keep your medias consistent. Your watercolor and your canvas, that can vary very significantly, depending on where it's coming from. So that's why we decided on our website, we don't want to use other places to do our printing for us. We want to make sure that all those prints come from us and that they're super high quality. We actually offer, on that website, if you have a small portfolio of things that you've had scanned with us, there's two ways you can get on the site. Um, Basically, we set up an account for you, and you can either pay $300 a year to be on the site. And if you do the $300 a year, we split the profit 10/90. So you would get 90% of the profit, and we would get 10%. Um, if you if you want to do it for free, we wouldn't charge you the $300. And then we do a different split. It's split 40/60. So you would get 60% of the profit and we would get 40%. It's more like how a regular gallery would do pricing. So I definitely encourage everybody to take a look at that site. We're still in the early stages of that and we're making a lot of changes to it, but so far it's been really good. And we're just trying to do some advertising now to get more buyers on the site. But in the
Jeff,
past,
do you have a kind of a standard turnaround or does it depend?
yeah, actually, most of the turnaround time, especially from the prints that we've had on the website, since we don't have to do any scanning, the file's already there, so we can usually turn things around within just a few days. If it's a watercolor print, it usually will go out in 1 or 2 days. If it's a canvas that needs just stretched or mounted, that might be a couple extra days. And
What
then
about for the scan?
Uh, so actually, the website doesn't have anything to do with scanning. The
Oh,
scans are
okay.
already done. So if you
Okay.
want to be on the site, that scan has to be there already. Um, but as for framing, we actually do offer framing on the website too. So um, if there's framing done, that adds a couple of extra days to that too, because we have to get those in, get the frames in, and do the assembly and everything. Um,
Jeff,
yeah.
I think the question might have been more about the scan process, what your turnaround is from the time you get the artwork until they get the proof and so forth like that.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's actually It usually depends on a couple things. If you're going to have color correction done, and you plan to do prints, we definitely recommend doing scanning with the color correction. Our normal turnaround time for that is about a week, 4 or 5 working days. And but if you're looking to just have something photographed for digitizing purposes, so you can put it on the website and test things out and do some advertising, and you don't need that color correction, we're basically just color correcting to our printers so you can make prints. If you don't plan on doing prints, we can actually shoot your art with our really nice lighting and give you really nice files for your website or advertising. And that will only take like a day or two to get those files to you. Um, we so yeah, that kind of gives you an idea about for the turnaround time for that.
Hey Jeff, I did have a quick question for you, wondering about sizes, because what is the largest size that you can actually scan and work in your studio to be able to, take a photograph of that and upload it?
Yeah.
Because some of us do work large, and I just needed to know what the limitations might be.
Yeah.
And possibly the last question, so that I can allow you to continue to talk, is that I did notice Deborah is on your site. Hi, Deborah, and I heard you chime in. It would be great to possibly hear from someone who works with you, if you
Yeah.
have something to say. Thanks.
Yeah. So as for the size, yeah, pretty much any size. We can if you're if your originals are a little bit larger and you're doing like 40 by 60s or 4 foot by 8 foot or something like that, we can definitely work with that. I usually don't charge any more than $197 to shoot large pieces. But if you're bringing us a piece that's like 4 foot by 8 foot, that might be more around $300, just depending on what it is. So we mainly because we have to shoot that in multiple pieces, we can't put it on our on our flatbed. That has to be shot in our warehouse and lit differently. So that's kind of like doing a photo shoot specifically for your piece of art. So it'll be a little bit more expensive for that type of thing. But we really don't. I've never told anybody no for scanning something because of the size. So we can definitely accommodate just about anything that's out there. But yeah, Deborah's been on our website.
About a year, I think.
Yeah, about a year now, and I think if I don't know, Deborah, if you want to talk a little bit about the process and
Well, it was an easy process to figure out, and I got a lot of help from your folks, because even easy processes tend to leave me completely stumped from time to time. So, there was somebody I was speaking to, I think couple of times over the course of a couple of days, who was very, very helpful. But once I had my questions answered, it was very easy to upload my work, and fill out all the information. The other thing I want to say too before I mute myself again is I've been working with Jeff since I don't know how long. I was taking pictures of my cave art, I mean, that's how long it's been. And just excellent work, easy to work with. Some on rare occasions we have to go in and color correct, and he always takes whatever time you want him to take to help you do that. The last thing I wanted to say is that for those of you who might work in other media besides pastel, one of the things I almost always take to Jeff is work I do in colored pencil, because it's kind of hard for me to do my own photography of that because the wax is very shiny, and especially if I'm working on drafting film. So if you're working in a shiny medium, either that or you've got a lot of varnish on an oil painting or whatever, Jeff can take a scan of your piece so that you don't have all those little light glares that pop up that you just are chasing with your camera and your lights trying to fix. He can give you a beautiful scan that you can use for anything. I've used it for magazine publications. I've used it for giclees for galleries. It's so versatile. He just puts it all on a thumb drive for you.
yeah,
Hey,
that
Jeff,
that's
why don't you take us off of screen share? so we can all see you better. And
Because if you can tell by my voice, I sound like my brother. If I had a brother, I have a cold, and I'm not really all that pleased about about my video. My
oh,
hair.
you don't have to. I'm asking Jeff to go off of
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
screen
okay,
share.
good. Thank God. Okay.
Yeah, nobody has to
nobody-
see you. Don't
Nobody
worry.
wants to see that. No.
Yeah, so that actually, thank you so much, Deborah, for your really nice words there. And yeah, Deborah's been, I swear she's been coming for at least 15 years or so. And
Just
we
seems
do
like
have a lot of our customers have been coming here for 15 or 20 years. We still have a lot of people that are coming here for a very long time. And I think that's sort of a testament to we actually do try very hard to first concentrate on customer service, because especially in this field, um, most people have a little bit of trouble with the formats and the digital and the lighting and all that kind of stuff, and that's what we specialize in. So that's what we're here for, is to help you with all those things.
um,
Uh,
Jeff,
mhm.
I just thought of one more thing I wanted to say, if you don't mind. One of the things he's done for me in the past, and this may not make a lot of sense to some folks, but when you take a photograph of your work with a standard camera or your phone, the color management in the phone and the camera is what's called RGB. And if you want to then take that image and you're lucky enough to get into a magazine, they're usually going to want it converted to CMYK. And you can do that yourself if you buy a very expensive software, or if Jeff is the one who did the scan for you, he can convert it for you. And he has done that for me on more than one occasion, so I haven't had to. So he can also take the things that you've done and crank them up for you if necessary.
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, I'm definitely here to help with anything that has to do with digital. If you're entering a show and you don't understand the pixel dimensions and all that kind of the formats that they're asking for, I can help with those types of things. If you're putting something in a magazine, um, my background is actually in offset printing and things like that, printing in magazines. So I can help with those types of things. And one thing that Deborah made me think of was when you're bringing things in for scanning, we do recommend not having them in a frame. And I think that's an important thing to mention here, since most people are doing pastel here. Um, if your pieces are framed, we can take it out of the frame for you. We usually charge like $12 to $20 to take it out of the frame, scan it, and then put it back in for you. I know pastel framing can be a little bit of an issue, just trying to keep that powder from getting all over the place. um, so we can either help you get things out of the frame so we can have it scanned, or if you don't have it framed yet, a lot of the customers that we have that do pastels, they tend to kind of make their own little box, sometimes out of a piece of foam core with a little bit of a buildup around it, put their pastel in that, and then put a foam core or cardboard cover on top of that. If you bring it in like that, we're just going to open that cover, shoot it from above, close it back up again, and then just take a look at it here and there for the color correction, and it will get it safely back to you. Um, we definitely have done hundreds and hundreds of pastels here, and we understand the delicate nature of those. So yeah, you can definitely trust us to bring your pieces in and have them here for 4 or 5 days, and we're going to take good care of them. Um, let's see. So we covered the website and everything. So yeah, any other questions from anyone? We're pretty good.
Thank you for answering my questions, and thank you, Deborah, for chiming in. I appreciated you. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I guess I can sign off now. Feel free to give me a call anytime. Would definitely love to help any of you out with making prints in the future. And if you're interested in trying to market your art, on the website. We can talk about that also. And it was really
We
great.
will send out your handout to everybody, so
Yeah.
thank you so much for that, Jeff.
Yeah, that's great. Also, you know, another thing that I might actually send you that you can send out also is there was this nice little poster that I have in the front of my office that kind of shows you the difference between shooting with an iPhone and what the prints look like, and then shooting with a Nikon camera and what the prints look like, and then shooting with our camera and all the different size prints. It's a really invaluable thing to see, and that we're really set in stone what the difference is between shooting with those different things. And I can send a little file of that so everybody can see that too.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank
All
you very
right.
much.
Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the invite, and glad I could get in and replace your other person that wasn't able to come by today.
Well, we're very glad you were able to step in for us.
Thank you so much.